Good morning, beloved, and welcome to Beacon Unitarian Universalist congregation. We are a community that is committed to radical inclusion, defeating the human spirit, and healing the world. We give thanks and we rejoice for each of your lights forming this beacon across miles, across time zones, this very day. We invite you to take a minute and let us know, where are you joining us from in the chat? Share your name, your pronouns, and the place that you're tuning in from as we gather this beacon. What a week for many of us to be finding the light again, to seek to continue this flame of our faith. So many of us across the United States were in the path of Hurricane Ida. Many of us are still dealing with the effects of flooding and storm damage. And so this day, beloved, I invite you as we begin to take a minute to check in with yourself, to take a minute to welcome the fullness of who you are in this moment, wherever and however you be. You are not only welcome here, but we need you. We need one another. In the midst of the storm, as my own basement was filling, I had neighbors who texted and asked how could they help. They would come over right away to help bail us out. And soon I was flooded with messages, poor metaphor perhaps, from all kinds of Beacon members and friends, posting to social media, connecting in the midst of the storm. That is how truly we are a beacon together. That is how we kindle the light again and again. And so this day, if you hear words of inspiration or comfort, I invite you to extend this beacon, to share over social media, perhaps send an email or a text message. Check in on your neighbors. Check in on your friends. Check in now with yourself. Do you know the light within and among? Are you ready to consider that which is of greatest worth? Come then, let us worship together.
Each morning we gather together, we light the flaming chalice, the symbol of our faith. And so from the momentary to the magnificent and the minuscule, we come to draw ourselves together like dew to leaves, like wind to willow. We remember beyond our imagined identities this tender thread, this great web. A flame across generations, a flame rising even as waters have risen, a flame rising higher to remind us, together we can, together we will. So may it be.
Good morning, Beacon. On this day of solidarity with workers, both within our borders and abroad, let us come together for a prayer of unity and solidarity. Closing our eyes and breathing deeply in and out. With that breath, our awareness of each part of our body grows. Too often we forget about our bodies. And so as we breathe, we become aware of the tips of our fingers and the tips of our toes. We become aware of our beating heart and the flow of our blood. As we breathe in and out, we release any sense of separation between mind and body and spirit. We become fully embodied. Breathing deeply in and pushing that breath even further out, we discover a union with the chair that holds us in this minute, with the ground beneath us, the air that is all around us, and the sounds of life, the presence of life that is around us too. We become aware that we are more than individuals, but we are in communion with life itself. And so we release any sense of separation, and we endeavor to become one with life. Breathing deeply in and simply letting go of the breath, we begin to experience the universe that is outside of us and the universe within us as one universe. And together as one with that universe, we reach towards self-awareness, towards consciousness, towards meaning. And yes, we reach toward possibility. As we move out into the actions that will become our weeks, we will breathe through each and every one. Let us be mindful of our breath in each of those actions. Mindful that our breath will not be ours alone, but the breath of life itself. Breathing together, we will turn away from all of the functions that seek to divide and separate us from one another and from the community of living things. With each breath this week, our prayer is that we will incarnate that which called us into being, that which sustains us in being, that which transforms us as we cannot transform ourselves alone. We will incarnate that which will receive us back to itself when life has used us up. With each breath, beloved, let us live into the dream of that beloved community. Let that be our prayer. The unity of life, solidarity with life and with the universe within and without itself. This great possibility of community of life. Amen and Ashe.
Fostering connection is sacred work. In the words of Adrienne Marie Brown, we are socialized to see what is wrong, what is missing, off, to tear down the ideas of others and lift up our own. To a certain degree, our entire future may depend on learning to listen and listen without defenses. In this time of kindling lights across time zones, colonial borders, and miles, in and among the narrow and close spaces of our heart, may you listen now, hear now, and take in what is on your heart. May you listen now, hear now, and take in what is in the heart of another. If you are holding someone in your heart for whom you'd like a candle to be lighted, I invite you to place their name and or intention in the chat. If you'd like us to light a candle for you, I invite you to put a heart or your name in the chat. Today, our Beacon community is lighting candles for all those in the U.S., including here at home in New Jersey, who found themselves frightened in the path of Tropical Storm Ida. We also light candles for Afghan refugees and all those fleeing for their safety. On this Labor Day weekend, we also remember the struggle for labor rights and the many who envisioned a day where our work was not the measure of our worth. As each candle is lit, may each of us know that we are held in the care and love of this community. We light a candle for a loved one or ourselves, with memories and hope that live on within us, burning bright. If you have celebrated a birthday this week, I invite you to celebrate that, and we with you by naming it in the chat. Beloved, for these gifts and so much more, we give thanks.
Hi, I'm George Faison, and along with my wife Stephanie, we have been members of Beacon for over 10 years now. I was asked what makes Beacon special for me. And back then, I was searching for a home, a place to call my spiritual home. I was raised Protestant. I'd become increasingly disenchanted with the lack of integrity as I saw it. And I was looking for a place that aligned my spiritual journey with social activism, to make this planet we live on a place where all are welcomed and valued. And a good friend suggested Beacon. We began attending and were inspired by the openness of the members, as well as the passion and the depth of the sermons from the pulpit. As we got more involved and we participated in and witnessed an incredible variety and diversity of people, thought, and missions of service. And today, over 10 years on, I find my attraction and affection even deeper. For the diversity of our congregation, for the different backgrounds, the ethnicities, the orientations, the spiritual traditions, the depth of our social activism, feeding and housing refugees and immigrants and the homeless in our own community, volunteering to assist the children in school mentoring and in staff support, challenging the local police to improve community relations with our fellow citizens of color. And then the neighborhood beacon, the green projects, hanging the Black Lives Matter banners, and creating connection with like-minded congregations in our community. Adopting the eighth principle with the express purpose to truly create a beloved community where all peoples are valued and have the opportunity to grow and prosper. And most important, the nurturing of our children. While our own children were grown by the time we reached Beacon, I have witnessed a rich, supportive program that teaches and models inclusivity and respect from day one. The message they are surrounded with is of love and acceptance, setting them up for a greater, in my mind, more vibrant human experience in their lives. So that's what I love. How about you? Because the truth is, we create this community called Beacon together. You and me, us. Our mission comes alive through our relationships, our voices, our leadership, and our gifts. So now we move into a time where we give generously to support making that mission come alive in our lives and in the world. In a minute, you'll see ways to contribute to Beacon. We invite you to lean into this practice of generosity. I know firsthand it makes a difference. Thank you.
This morning's reading is from the poet-prophet Wendell Berry, entitled Manifesto, the Mad Farmer Liberation Front. Love the quick profit, the annual raise, vacation with pay. Want more of everything ready-made. Be afraid to know your neighbor and to die, and you will have a window into your head. Not even your future will be a mystery anymore. Your mind will be punched in a card and shut away in a little drawer. When they want you to buy something, they will call you. When they want you to die for profit, they will let you know. So, friends, every day, do something that will not compute. Love the Lord. Love the world. Work for nothing. Take all that you have and be poor. Love someone who does not deserve it. Denounce the government and embrace the flag. Hope to live in that free republic for which it stands. Give your approval to all you cannot understand. Praise ignorance, for what man has not encountered, he has not destroyed. Ask the questions that have no answers. Invest in the millennium. Plant sequoias. Say that your main crop is the forest that you did not plant, that you will not live to harvest. Say that the leaves are harvested when they have rotted into the mold. Call that prophet. Prophesy such returns. Put your faith in the 2 inches of humus that will build under the trees every 1,000 years. Listen to carrion. Put your ear close and hear the faint chattering of the songs that are to come. Expect the end of the world. Laugh. Laughter is immeasurable. Be joyful, though you have considered all the facts. So long as women do not go cheap for power, please women more than men. Ask yourself, will this satisfy a woman satisfied to bear a child? Will this disturb the sleep of a woman near to giving birth? Go with your love to the fields. Lie easy in the shade. Rest your head in her lap. Swear allegiance to what is nighest to your thoughts. As soon as the generals and the politicos can predict the motions of your mind, lose it. Leave it as a sign to mark the false trade, the way you didn't go. Be like the fox who makes more tracks than necessary, some in the wrong direction. Practice resurrection. Here ends our reading.
A couple weeks ago, I was on a radio interview about the fight for a living wage, the $15 minimum federal wage, and the fight for voting rights that are happening in West Virginia and across the country right now. The interviewer asked me, yes, well, but what do you say to someone living in an area, say like DC, where $15 per hour as a federal minimum wage doesn't mean a whole lot? 100 years ago, the mine wars, or West Virginia coal wars, ended. For 9 years, miners in West Virginia fought for better pay, working conditions, and the right to organize under the United Mine Workers. Among the organizers in West Virginia that led the struggle included Mother Jones, who reminded the women she encountered in organizing, quote, "No matter what the fight, don't be ladylike. God Almighty made women, and the Rockefeller gang of thieves made the ladies." In 1912, West Virginia mines produced over 89 million tons of coal. The mines were so dangerous in West Virginia that soldiers in World War I had lower fatality rates than miners in West Virginia. Added to the danger was the gross economic iniquity. The miners were paid in scrips, essentially pieces of paper that promised some amount of money, and they were only permitted to use the scrips at company stores for particular products. When this multiracial uprising, the largest in our country's history, demanded living wages, the mine companies refused to negotiate at all, and instead hired armed agents to compel the miners to work. On August 20th, 1921, the miners began marching from Lenz Creek to Logan County, and estimates range anywhere from 5,000 to 20,000 miners were marching. It was the largest armed multiracial uprising in U.S. history. On September 2nd, President Harding sent in federal troops, including from New Jersey, to quell the uprising. Facing more aerial bombing, they had already been bombed with gas bombs overhead, and military weaponry, the miners stood down. Tomorrow is Labor Day, a celebration of workers and the labor movement's achievements. It was first recognized as a federal holiday in 1894. That's right, if you can do the math. Labor Day was a holiday 27 years before the United States government would drop bombs on miners demanding a living wage, safer working conditions, and the right to use their pay where they would like. For many people, Labor Day is nothing more than a discount sale and a day to sleep in. Long gone are the memories of blood-soaked coal towns. But we forget, beloved, our history at our peril, as we see now in the Texas legislature. Now, those same families and towns in West Virginia are rising up again, joined with workers across the country demanding a $15 per hour minimum wage, demanding voting rights in both For the People Act and the Voter Rights Restoration Act, and an end to this racist filibuster. I sat thinking about the dead miners while I took in that question early in the morning about the minimum wage. It hit me like a gut punch. It's a luxury, I thought, to consider what is sufficient for someone else. I'd say that nothing prevents a state from raising their minimum wage to a living wage in that state. But, I continued to the interviewer, to not work to pass a federal $15 minimum wage because of the cost of living in a few states is grossly disrespectful and immoral. It means something to the more than 64 million low-wage workers in this country who are currently making less than $15 per hour. You see, beloved, labor is inherently an ethical question. It's about valuing. There's no way around it. It is moral to the core, questioning human dignity, purpose, and the core principles of our faith. This is also why many economic theorists over the years have sought to divorce the discipline from ethics, despite the incredibly religious tones in much of economic theory. Consider the invisible hand, for one. This Labor Day, we are invited to not only recall the labor struggles of the past, but to answer with courage what our faith teaches us about human and earthly value and how we are called to act now to resist exploitation and oppression and instead to replace them with interdependence, beloved community, and spiritual wholeness. Politics and economics cannot be separated from ethics. Across human history, there have been systems of valuing, some that placed value on proximity to the earth or on the earth herself. Physiocrats, for example, in the 17th century argued that the only thing that actually produces new things is the earth. By contrast, they said humans can merely transform, but not produce. Others argued at the same time that investors and capitalists should have the lion's share of the reward for the greater risk in the system. Still others argued for systems of valuing that lifted up labor as a primary human value. How much could you produce and how much time did it take would dictate the cost of an item and the wages, while others argued that cost should be relative to the access of workers to basic and fundamental needs. This is not a new fight, is my point. As Jesus famously said, the poor will always be with you. not a fatal determination of ongoing class war or somehow God-ordained poverty, but instead a spiritual imperative, as Reverend Dr. Liz Theo Harris teaches, of the imperative to end poverty. This passage, often taken out of context, is also coupled with the strongest teaching of how to create economic equity. Jesus, in the ensuing lines, instructs those who are landowners to open their fields to the poor, to share of their wealth to extend to siblings. Who are the poor? More than 140 million people in the United States are poor, and the numbers are growing since the pandemic began. That's over 43% of this country. It is past time, beloved, to recognize that poverty is not a personal moral failing, but rather a systemic and intentional and changeable reality today. Of the 140 million people today, 38.5 million are children. 21 million are elders. 23.7 million are Black, 38 million Latinx, 8 million Asian, 2.14 million Native or Indigenous, and 65.6 million are white. Raising the federal minimum wage from $7.25 to $15 per hour, for example, would put $328 billion into the hands of families and households who will spend most of that back into the economy. Raising the minimum wage by just $2 could have prevented more than 57,000 suicides between 1990 and 2015. Who are the poor? They are members here at Beacon. They are you and your neighbors. They are working, they are out of work or retired, they are children, they are us, we are them. One medical bill away from crisis, driving a 15-year-old car that is one repair away from peril, unable to afford to live here after we retire, or constantly finding the landslide of debt coming toward our home. We hide behind education or class distinctions like being a minister, a manager, or a professor. But poverty is here, and it is growing. This is the first religious call of Labor Day. Break down the barriers. As we face the impending reality of the climate emergency and the cliff of human destruction, our policies are not abstract arguments, but the moral battlegrounds of our time. And despite our fatigue or bewilderment, we have got to get this theology right. None of us is worthy because of our production. None of us is a title, an output, a calculated cost or computation, no more than our very earth can be. This is why the poet Wendell Berry writes, "So friends, every day do something that won't compute. Love the Lord, love the world. Do something, beloved, that won't compute." Because raising the federal minimum wage to $15 per hour would have prevented more than 57,000 suicides. People are dying because of poverty every day. Don't ask, is it enough? Ask, when can we start and where? Because we has always been the most powerful word in the history of people. We together can rise up and put colonizers at bay in Bacon's rebellion. We together can demand a living wage, a voice in our government, and illuminate the hypocrisies in commemorations like Labor Day when work is more dangerous than going to war. We can demand that our politicians serve the people and abide an ethic of life that does not define pro-life to the parameters of a uterus, but instead sounds the alarm bells for the living who are suffering and dying, not because there isn't enough, but because we have set policies that give corporations relief while punishing the poor for existing at all. We can do this social distanced in a pandemic. We can take actions, for example, at the Poor People's Campaign website. We can demand inherent worth and dignity. We can demand policies that actually live out interdependence. You know, people drowned in New Jersey and New York this past week, not as an act of God, but as an act of policy and poverty. People living in basement apartments because housing is not affordable or accessible. Unauthorized tenants where wages are insufficient to secure housing for families, where workers can't survive. Others died because of insufficient infrastructure and because the cost of capitalism was prized over human life and the earth. These are not abstractions or even predictions to the future. This is now. And the only way forward is together. And the only act is not of charity or helping the poor, but being the poor together and telling the truth that we are not and never were the sum of what we produce. We were not made to be cogs of computation and transformers of resources for someone else's capital. We will take action together. We will continue come bombs or troops, come lies or deceit, come floods or hurricanes, come pandemics or pestilence. We will continue this day, beloved. We will remember. We will vow. We will rest our heads in the lap of a lover. We will close our eyes under one sun. We, beloved, we will take in the sweetest of unmade moments and remember the pain and the struggle, and then we will fight like hell for the living. And then we will continue to love the hell out of this world and demand every ounce of what we are worth. For that is why we were made. Amen. So may it be.
May the work I've done speak for me. May the work I've done speak for me. When I come to the end of this road and I lay down this heavy load, may the work I've done speak for me. Let the life I've lived speak for me. Let the life I've lived speak for me. When I come to the end of this road and I lay down this heavy load, let the life I've lived speak for me. Let the friends I've made speak for me. Let the friends I've made speak for me. When I come to the end of this road and I lay down this heavy load, let the friends I made speak for me. Let the love I've shared speak for me. Let the love I've shared speak for me. When I come to the end of this road and I lay down this heavy load, let the life I've lived speak for me. Let the friends I've made speak for me. Let the love I've shared speak for me.
Go, beloved, this day out into the world, knowing that though our time has ended here, and this light is extinguished, there is a greater light that goes with you always. Follow that light, beloved. Follow that light to the end until we all are free. So may you be led by the love that holds all and liberates all. So may the spiritual ancestors be about your shoulders. So may the children one day tell of the histories of strength and freedom.